Only 2 minutes to go. It's time to start. I, on behalf of Igniting Power Engineers, welcome everyone. We have created a platform where we are moving with the objective to disseminate the knowledge from all the eminent personality across India and abroad, so that we can enlighten Indian electrical power engineers, and so that they can implement their learning in their system and they can make India proud. We have taken that step towards our objective of dissemination of knowledge, and we are thankful to all the eminent personality who have come forward to give their help. The same line, today we are going to talk about transformer bushing design, technology, condition monitoring aspects. And I'm very thankful to both eminent personality of bushing manufacturing area, Rao Saab and Patel Saab, Nirav Patel, who accepted my request and now they are with us. In this topic, we are going to talk about construction type, condenser grading concept, insulation system types, capacitance and 10 delta basics, 10 delta of various insulation systems, variable frequency 10 delta, why 0 or negative 10 delta happens, and what are the main precautions to be taken during site measurement, and what are the typical failure mode of bushings, and condition monitoring techniques to be applied for the bushings. Bushing is kind of subject that is very important because when you start electrical engineering, the very common word in electrical engineering is power transformer. And in power transformer, the most delicate, most important part fitted with that transformer is the bushing. Before I give introduction of to this eminent personality who are with us and hand over the stage to these two, I would like to thank some mentors, some important personality, and because of their blessings and guidance, we are here and conducting our 7th webinar in a row. And I will be failing in my duty if I don't mention a name of this mentor who supported, guided, encouraged, and have been instrumental in my journey of learning, and without which it has not been possible to reach here where I am here right now, and my Igniting Power group, engineer group, Telegram group is here. In that line, first of all, I would like to thank Almighty, my family, respected Wahi Saab, Anjali Chandra ma'am, Sahil sir, Pramod sir, Dr. Kamal Bansal ji, Honorable P. Ramachandran sir, K.K. Murthy sir, K.K. Gupta ji, N.K. Mittal ji, Sanjay Agarwal, very good friend of mine, my mentor, Amit Bhatia ji, Apao sir, Sanjay Patki sir, P.K. Patnaik ji, Dr. Rajamani, Harish Mehta sir, Manas Kundu ji, Yogesh Sood ji, Dr. Vikas, Gopa Kumar, Sanjeev Banerjee, HR Sridhar, LM Saini sir, SK Battar ji of CBIP, Saket Gupta, very good friend of mine, Varun, Hitesh, Abhishek, Gulab, the main pillar of this IP, and Ruchika, and last but not the least, ELP Alliance and CBIP for their unflinching support. Now, time to give a small introduction about the two eminent personalities who are with us to talk about transformer bushing design, technology, and condition monitoring aspects is Pramod Rao, sir. He is basically technical advisor to Yash High Voltage Limited, having 40 years of experience in the HV and EHV instrument transformers and the condenser bushing. And he has wide experience in the field of product design and development, manufacturing and quality assurance, high voltage testing and evaluation, database analysis, Six Sigma improvement, profit and loss business management. Out of his good 10 technical papers, two very popular Segre papers are EHV current transformer failure mode analysis and evaluation leading to corrective and preventive actions for reliability enhancement. And second popular paper is the transformer bushing current technology trend development and its relevance in the monitoring of bushing in service. In the same line, now time to give a small brief about Nirav Patel, very good friend of mine, and he's the GM of business operation of Yash High Voltage Limited. He done his BTech Electrical from Pennsylvania State University with minor in the engineering entrepreneurs and having 12 years of experience in the field of HV and EHV condenser bushing, OIP, RFP, and high voltage current type, and having 5 years in the field of heavy engineering and fabrication for power operators. He is having experience in the field of marketing and the business development, manufacturing and the projects management. Now, without wasting further time, I would like to hand over the stage to these two eminent personalities, and I am quite sure with their knowledge, they are going to make this stage on the fire. Please, I request everyone to welcome these two personalities, and I request Ruchika ma'am to unmute everyone to give welcome and round of applause to these two persons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Rajesh sir, I would really like to thank for such a spectacular and humbling introduction to us. And I thank Igniting Power Engineers and Dr. Rajesh Arora for this great opportunity to present about transformer bushings technology aspects to some of the best the Indian power industry has seen. I myself am humbled at the presence of all the industry stalwarts who were welcomed by Arora ji very well, and I've had the privilege to work with and learn from many of you who are present here today, and we are really thankful to be in your company today and have the opportunity to share what best we have gathered or what we have learned about this product over the last 20 years as a manufacturer based out of India. So without wasting further time, I welcome all of you. Thank you once again for being here and sparing the time. And I'll just begin with some brief aspects about transformer bushings, after which I will hand over the stage to Rao sir. So a transformer bushing, just as a basic definition, is a device which helps to provide a safe path for current at very high voltage through an earth barrier. As we can see here in this image, a bushing carries a conductor in its center, and what's not visible is also a condenser core which helps condense all that power into a very small space, because that is one of the major constraints in high voltage engineering, which is space, because air is not a very good carrier for breakdown at such high voltages. So To provide this safe path, the bushings play a very key and very critical role in power transformers. And typically, it is to take the power from high voltage lines through an earth barrier, which is in the form of a transformer tank or a transformer tank cover or a GIS flange, or through a building made out of wall, cement or brick. Next slide, please. In other words, I also always like to describe transformer bushing as a super critical gateway or a pathway for entry and exit of power inside and outside of a transformer. Like we can see here in the images, the major power transformers in the transmission are either of the step up or the step down side, and with a high voltage and a low voltage side, primary and secondary in the technical terms. We can see that the voltage either enters the low voltage side and exits on the high voltage side after being stepped up, or vice versa. Next, please. Here we can see a typical representation of the power system, right from the generation stage all the way till the end use, which are all of us who are the end users for the power, whether it is in our offices or factories or homes. On the top left, we can see the typical hydropower generation, where the power from the generator is then taken through the bus ducts or the bus bars, where the current is very high during the initial stages and the voltage are relatively low at 13 or 18 kV typically. At these junctures, the first transformer in the line is a generator step-up transformer, which then steps up the voltage for further transmission. The step-up transformer on the low voltage side has these typical high current bushings, LV high current bushings, which they are called, which have the capability to carry currents from 5,000 amperes all the way to 40,000 amperes, which is significant in terms of current carrying capacity. Onward from the generator step-up transformer, we enter the primary transmission network, where the voltages are stepped up to 400 or 800, and now also in many places in the world up to 1100 or 1200 kV for long distance transmission, whether it is AC or DC transmission. There are always going to be power transformers in the primary grid, which will be stepping up or stepping down the voltage to get them to the end user. And on the primary and secondary side, or typically the low voltage and the high voltage side of the power transformers, again will be the high voltage condenser bushings, which will be installed to provide the safe path to the current and voltage. Next, sir, please. Moving on to the typical construction types of high voltage bushings. We can see here in the photograph, there are typically applications for air to oil, indoor type bushings, air to oil, outdoor type bushings, oil to oil bushings, or oil to SF6 or oil to gas bushings, as they are popularly known, in the condenser type bushings, which we are primarily discussing today. There are also many other various types of bushings, which we will not be going over today, but typically we will be also discussing primarily the condenser bushings. Yes, Rao sir, the next slide, please. The typical construction of a condenser bushing, which are popularly known, there are three types. One is a draw lead, second is the draw rod, which is in the middle, and the third is a stem type. A draw lead bushing, as very apparent from also its name, has a hollow conductor or a hollow tube upon which the actual paper and oil core of the bushing is built, or which is the condenser core of the bushing, which is why they are popularly also known as condenser bushings. In these type of bushings, normally the current carrying capacity is limited up to 800 or about 1000 amperes, and the lead of the transformer, the core of the transformer has the lead, which is drawn through the central conductor of the bushing and brazed to the high voltage or the HV point at the top of the bushing, as can be seen in the image.
Hello, Nirav. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Neeravji, your voice is not coming. I think there's some
I
technical
think,
glitch.
I think he got disconnected. Can I go ahead, Dr. Arora?
Please.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
sorry,
Please.
I got disconnected. Yes, Rao sir, you may please continue. I got disconnected.
Yeah. As Nirav was mentioning, draw lead is the type what he described. Second type is draw rod, where the copper rod is drawn through the aluminum tube of the condenser core, and the draw rod means you will have the draw lead at the bottom. Sorry, the transformer lead at the bottom, either crimped or bolted to the draw rod, which is at the oil end terminal of the bushing. And the third type is solid copper rod type bushing, or many times there are constructions where copper pipe or aluminum pipe itself is used to carry the current, and on which the condenser is wound. And here the main thing is that the transformer lead termination is done at the oil end terminal of the bushing. We go to the next slide. You can see the other type is based on the grading construction. Typically on the left side, you will see that there are ungraded bushings. And what you are seeing as equipotential lines, these are the fields, these are the equipotential lines. Means, let's say if HV is at 100, these equipotential lines will, these are imaginary lines which have the same potential. Say this is 80, this is 60, or this is 20, like that. Now that equipotential has to be distributed throughout the insulation, and that is what is done by condenser grading. So you are seeing these dark lines which are various condenser foils or condenser materials which are inserted in the insulation. This is from a very old book, the description of another variety. We saw ungraded bushing, and in graded bushing there are two types, which are non-fine graded bushings and fine graded bushings. You can see the difference in non-fine graded bushings is typically the number of field lines, the number of electrodes which are placed to form condensers, they are limited. And they will have, say, 33%, 66%, and 99% or 100%. They don't have that much uniformity like a finely graded condenser. Now let's look at ungraded bushing. This is one of the 110 kV ungraded bushing on the right side. This picture has been taken from a SIGRE document where you can see the bushing is in service since 1950. This is totally ungraded bushing. But in a ungraded bushing, typically you don't have any, you can say any paper insulation or that kind of thing. You don't have condenser foils inside. You have solid insulation. Either it is oil filled, or there are some insulating compounds like jelly. They also can be filled in. Typically, they are used maximum up to 36 kV, used in distribution type transformers, or you can say 11 kV and 33 kV side of transformers also. They are typically oil communicating bushings. And the size wise, if you really see, a 245 kV bushing, ungraded bushing in olden days used to be of about 1 meter diameter, whereas condenser type bushing is about 0.2 meter diameter. So you can imagine the constraint is size, and you can imagine the size is manageable till the voltage withstand of 70 kV, and that becomes the 36 kV rated bushing. And when we talk about condenser grading, there are various aluminum foils which are inserted. There used to be some other designs where conducting ink was coated on the papers. But in today, maximum kind of designs which are existing are aluminum foil type of material which is used for forming the capacitor electrodes. And you can imagine that they are all concentric electrodes around the central conductor of the bushing, central conductor or central pipe of the bushing. So this all these concentric coaxial capacitors or cylindrical capacitors, all these capacitors are in series. You can model it like that, and it is called as C1. And then there is something which is called as test tab, which is taken out to measure the capacitance and tan delta predominantly to measure the partial discharges during the routine manufacturing of bushings or on the power transformers also. So the test tab or the outermost aluminum foil layer is taken out as a test tab lead. So this through this we can measure the capacitance tan delta or PD. So this lead to ground forms a capacitance which is called as C2. Now you can see the difference in stress distribution or voltage distribution here in the picture. In ungraded bushing, you can see that the innermost electrode will always be highly stressed, and the stress is very high on the nearer to the innermost electrode. Whereas by condenser grading, you are segmenting it into small stress zones, but overall you can see the E maximum is reduced to a great extent. Typically, in case of oil impregnated paper bushings, there are 50 number of foils which are used, and in case of RIP or RIS bushings, 25 foils are used. The general rule of thumb used is that in case of OIP bushings, if the 1 minute withstand voltage for 245 kV bushing is 505 kV, 10 kV per aluminum foil segment, you should use that as the concept. But whereas in case of RIP or RIS, at 245 kV level, that is the highest system voltage level or the highest voltage, you can consider 10 kV per mm as the stress value. So you divide 10 kV, 245 kV by 10. So 25 number of foils will be there in case of 245. This is a rule of thumb which can be used when no data is available. Okay. Typically, these are the photographs of condenser windings. On the leftmost side, this is of OIP transformer bushing winding. Such wider paper is used, and you can see here the aluminum foil getting inserted. This is of RIP bushing, wider RIP bushing, and again here the aluminum foils are inserted. This is resin impregnated synthetic bushing, and here the synthetic material, and again you can see the aluminum foil getting inserted. And these are white paper machines. Today there are machines, I have seen the machine right up to 10-meter width. You can wind the paper for the highest size of bushing. Then in condenser grading, what is the effect of condenser grading? The condenser grading, these are the actual fill plots done. This is on the left side, you see this is the air end side of the bushing of air oil bushing, and this is the oil end side. This is the turret, and these are the actual field lines drawn. So the basic objective, as you have seen with grading, our intention is to uniformize the stress along the oil end insulator or along the air end insulator and inside the condenser. That is the objective of condenser grading. Again, now we talk about the insulation system types. I have used the terminologies earlier, but everybody knows it, but let's summarize it. On the left side, you will see this is the OIP bushing, oil impregnated paper bushing, which is commonly used since 1950 now. And first 400 kV bushing, as the data I could source, means I could find out, was in early 1950s, and first 765 kV bushing was manufactured in 1960s. That's what I could guess. I could get the information. And these are suitable up to 105 degrees centigrade. RIP resin impregnated paper in bulk commercial use since 1970. A total solid insulation system which is free from oil. This is the popularity of RIP bushings. They are suitable for operations up to 120 degrees centigrade. RIS bushing, resin impregnated synthetics without paper. They are recent developments, and the experience today of these bushings is around 7 years, but very encouraging and very positive experience. And another type, RIF bushing, resin impregnated fiberglass. The manufacturer in Americas, he says that they have introduced it into the market in 2003. But in the other part of the world, it is not so much popular. RBP bushings, resin bonded paper. These were the first bushings which were manufactured, and the first use is reported in 1913. KV class was limited up to 230 kV. Now no longer it is in major use. At some locations they may be still performing, but it is not produced nowadays. That's what I understand. You can see the comparison of OIP, RIP, RIS and RIF. Insulation, you have seen the description. Air and insulator. In case of OIP, porcelain is very popular, and composite insulator is becoming popular in OIP also now. RIP, direct molded silicon insulators or hollow composite insulators, means the silicon is directly molded onto the resin impregnated paper condenser. That is the meaning of direct molding. Similar construction is there in RIS, and in RIF, I could get references of direct molded silicon insulator. Oil and insulator, typically in oil impregnated paper construction, these are either made of porcelain or they are made of epoxy. Epoxy has been introduced into OIP bushings. The main intention has been that it is shatterproof. Okay, that is the basic intention. Means shatterproof means it will not cause so much damage like porcelain insulator. In RIP, RIS and RIF, there is no separate insulator which is necessary. The resin impregnated paper condenser core or RIS condenser core or RIF condenser core, they themselves form the oil-end part of the bushings. The temperature range of OIP we have seen is 105, RIP 120, RIS around 120 again, and RIF it is reported to be 130. The issues which are faced in storage, typically in case of OIP, if not stored rightly, it can cause the de-impregnation. That is, the paper, the oil which is impregnated in paper, means some portion of the paper can be without oil also, if not stored right. In RIP, the issue reported is moisture absorption by oil end of the RIP core. Hence, there is always a use of oil-filled storage tank to prevent exposure of RIP to atmospheric moisture. RIS, there are no issues reported in storage, but still a practice is maintained like RIP to store it with oil-filled tank on the oil end side. The tan delta at 30 degrees centigrade, OIP shows the lowest tan delta values 0.003, 0.004, and whereas RIP, RIS or RIF, they are on the higher side compared to OIP because of the intrinsic characteristics of the resin material. These are the typical pictures of oil and parts of air to oil bushings of various systems. You can see here the paper impregnated, resin impregnated paper bushings. You can see here this color, whereas here you can see in the section the aluminum foils inserted, and you can see the white color is of the synthetic film which is used in RIS condenser cores. And in RIF condenser cores, these are the aluminum foils. And typically in case of RIF, like a fiberglass tube, the condenser core is wound like a fiberglass tube. Now let's look at the typical construction of OIP bushings. In OIP bushing, we have the high voltage terminal here, oil level indicator. There has to be a visual oil indication. Then in case of OIP bushings, there is a spring assembly provided at the top because it's like a tie rod assembly. All the sealing is held intact by use of spring assembly, because with current passing through the center of the bushing, there could be thermal expansion and there could be differential thermal expansion, because there are various materials like metals, porcelains, epoxy. All these materials, they have different coefficient of thermal expansion. So the compression pressure on the sealing rings should not be lost. That's the main intention of the spring assembly. So also it has to withstand the pull on the HV terminal, which will be exercised. Whereas in case of resin impregnated paper, RIS or RIF, you will not have that spring assembly because there is no oil inside. Although there are some designs of RIP bushings, particularly used in the Russian segment, where RIP condenser core is also used with transform oil. But the most popular designs all around the world are resin impregnated paper or RIS bushings. They do not have oil. The gap between the insulator and the condenser core is filled by foam. Foam is polyurethane foam, or some people use polyurethane jelly also in the jelly form. In this kind of bushings, the RIP core is held at the mounting flange level by resin gluing. So this gives the mechanical strength to this RIP, RIS and RIF bushings. This is the typical spring assembly inside the conservator of OIP bushing. Either coil springs are used, or there are disc springs which are used, or Belleville washers, stacks of Belleville washers are used. But the ultimate function is the same, to compensate the difference in thermal expansion of various linear materials in the bushing assembly, metal, epoxy, porcelain, so that the hermetic sealing is maintained. Whereas in case of resin impregnated paper, as you can see by the red arrows, the gap between the resin impregnated paper core and the aluminum mounting flange is filled by resin glue. And you can see on the right side, the resin glue is getting filled, which gives the mechanical strength to the RIP or RIS bushings. Again, there is a small comment on OIP insulation technology before we go to the next subject. In OIP bushing technology, the most popular is kraft paper and mineral oil or conventional transformer oil. There is one manufacturer who used to make bushing with kraft paper and synthetic oil, and it was predominantly aromatic oil bushings. The new developments in this OIP bushings which are reported now is Siemens or Trench has come out with synthetic ester impregnated paper bushings, and they have called it as ester impregnated paper, so EIP. And these bushings they have launched in 2019 and 20. So now the performance of these bushings needs to be seen. Okay, on paper or on development phase, they have reported good development. Second development also, which is in progress that I could see, is synthetic ester impregnated synthetics, again, EIS, ester impregnated synthetics. Or to certain extent, we can call it as mixed dielectric, synthetic film plus non-woven fabric. So this synthetic film and synthetic ester oil is used mainly paperless bushing, you can say, paperless EIS bushing, and the main intention is to improve the aging performance and increase the operating temperature. And another development which I see is a promising development is that Nynas has come out with a new bio-based alternative oil, and this has been launched by them, and it is neither mineral oil or neither ester oil. I feel that there will be explorations or developments because this oil on paper has shown to be better than mineral oil or ester oil. Now let's go to the basics of capacitance and tan delta. Everybody will be knowing it, but I am giving a uh, repetition of some of the basic concepts so that we can take the subject forward from this aspect. As we have seen the concept of capacitance of C1 and C2, we saw in condenser grading. C1 is the condenser core part and C2 is between the test tap and the mounting flange. So this is capacitance, and since all these capacitors are in series, 1 over C1 total is 1 over C plus 1 over C plus 1 over C, like that. So any capacitor segment fails, it will result into increase of capacitance. Let's just remember it. Another concept related to capacitance is capacitance has got a temperature dependence. And so there is a concept which is called as temperature coefficient of capacitance. So for OIP and RIS, it is the lowest, 0.025 percentage per degree centigrade. RIS is 0.03%. So as you can see on the x-axis you have the temperature and on the y-axis you have the C by C20 change in capacitance. C20 is the capacitance at 20 degrees centigrade and C is the temperature at the respective capacitance at the respective temperatures. I forgot to mention RIP bushing. It is reported that it has got temperature coefficient of capacitance from 0.045 to 0.08% per degree centigrade. This variation is due to the various resin systems used by various manufacturers. Now, capacitance, as we all know, the relationship between voltage and capacitive current is 90 degrees, whereas the current through resistor, pure resistor, is in line. But whereas when we have the resistive current of the insulation flowing through the insulation, capacitive current flowing through the insulation. So we have the delta angle and IR divided by IC, that is tan delta. It is more or less same as power factor, which is used in the American area. They use the terminology power factor. Power factor is IR divided by I total. When we talk about tan delta or power factor, let's first look at what are the tan delta limits as per IEC and power factor limits as per IEEE standard. IEC 60137 for resin bonded paper, 1.5% is the limit they have given. Then OIP 0.7%, RIP 0.7%, RIS and RI 0.7%. In case of IEC, the tan delta is to be reported as measured between 10 and 40 degrees centigrade. And power factor as per IEEE, they are supposed to be corrected at 20 degrees centigrade. They are supposed to be corrected to 20 degrees centigrade. So you can see all these limits are as corrected to 20 degrees centigrade. Now typically means, although these are the standard limits, the typical tan delta values in case of OIP bushings is in the range of 0.003 to 0.004, but they are at 30 degrees centigrade. RIP, RIS is around 0.004 to 0.005. These are again mentioned as at 30 degrees centigrade. Typically, the OIP bushings have got very low tan delta values in view of very low tan delta values of the oil, because it comprises of oil as well as paper, whereas the paper to oil ratio is 100 to 10 on an average. And whereas in case of resin impregnated paper or RIS bushings, it is 60 to 40. Paper to resin ratio is 60 to 40. So resin is substantial. So that is the main reason. In India, there are the largest utility Power Grid. It specifies OIP, the tan delta limits at 0.004, and in case of RIP, it is mentioned as 0.005. In case of tan delta, it is mentioned many times in absolute values as well as in percentage. 0.005. Some people will use the terminology 5 mil, or you can say 0.5% also will be the terminology. Again, remember the delta angle, because it is very low loss dielectric material, the delta angle is only 0.3 degrees. Okay. Now tan delta and the power factor of the bushings, again, as is well known, it is a measure of dielectric loss. And the dielectric losses typically are caused by three aspects. One is conductive losses, represented by R, P and CP, parallel circuit. Polarization losses, which is the series circuit, RS and CS, and partial discharges. RP and CP, these are typically, you can say, means RS and CS, the series circuit is typical characteristics of the dielectric material, but RP, CP, you can say, is related to the overall construction. Okay, let's remember only these two aspects. Again, the tan delta, all these things, they are all dependent on temperature. All tan delta values of every material is dependent on temperature. Various literatures, even latest or earlier, have reported this. OIP bushing shows a typical tan delta curve as seen on the left side here. Let's say typically from 0 degrees to 100 degrees centigrade, from 0.0038 to 0.0048. Whereas you can see the curves for RIP or RIS are almost like hockey stick curves, and where the lowest tan delta temperature is around 60 degrees centigrade. And whereas in case of OIP, at least during our experience, we have seen that it is somewhere around 30 to 40 degrees centigrade is the lowest tan delta value. Again, the tan delta dependence of OIP is mainly dependent on the drying status of the paper insulation. If the insulation is dried well, the increase will not be so much. It can remain a flat curve. But whereas in case of RIP or RIS material, it is mainly the resin characteristics which decides the tan delta. Whereas in case of OIP, oil is deciding the tan delta value of OIP bushing, as well as the moisture content in the remaining moisture content in the paper is deciding that. I have shown two curves here because every manufacturing has to have minimum and maximum tolerances. What I showed in the earlier slide was the typical characteristics. So typically the characteristics are within this band. So whereas for RIP, and this is a typical error, typical tan delta band for RIP bushings versus temperature. These are manufacturing related variations. Then another concept which has become very popular now in India for last couple of years, last 2-3 years, and which has been very nicely described in SIGRE document 755, which was released in 2019. These variable frequency measurements, there are two types of measurements which have, they have been classified into two sets. One is DFR. Some people use the terminology narrowband DFR and wideband DFR, but let's use the terminology DFR. And here the frequency range is 15 Hertz to 400 Hertz. And FDS, the frequency domain spectroscopy, the frequency range is millihertz to kilohertz. Again, you can imagine on the right corner, I could find a nice curve which describes this DFR characteristics. You can see the blue line is the tan delta of the series circuit, and the tan delta of the series circuit is directly proportional to the frequency. So it is a linear rise relationship. Whereas you will find that in parallel circuit, the tan delta is inversely proportional. So if it would have been only a parallel circuit, the tan delta would have gained this shape. So the sum of both is the DFR as represented by the yellow line there. Another nice illustration which I found out through the technical material is RP for a purely insulating material. As I showed you, as if you have to imagine that this is not condenser core, this is the parallel path of the condenser core. If it is pure insulation, it will be infinity. So this component will be practically means this resistive current will be practically zero. But as the parallel paths keep on increasing, or it becomes from insulating to conducting, you will see the difference there. Another illustration which I found out, which I am presenting here is, when you see resistive current, it is independent of the frequency. So resistive current at 50 hertz and 15 hertz is going to remain the same. But whereas the current which is passing through the capacitor will be lower when it is at lower frequency. When it is at lower frequency, the current will be lower. Okay, so you will find that the tan delta or the power factor are going to increase, particularly at lower frequency. And this is a classical curve of the you can say FDS. This zone, the lower frequency measurement zone, it talks about moisture, geometry, and then this is oil conductivity zone, this is geometry, and this is moisture. So various interpretations of DFR and FDS are very helpful in case of analysis of the product. Now, this is a typical characteristic of OIP bushing, which has been reported in a technical paper. This is the healthy bushing characteristics at the bottom, the pink line. But as you can see, the yellow line, it indicates that there is moisture here. The blue line, there is moisture here. Because typically when we do 50 hertz measurement, they seem to be within limits, but lower frequency measurements will give us the indication that there could be some issues. As you can see here, as the moisture content keeps on increasing, the frequency versus power factor curve or frequency versus tan delta curve keeps on getting lifted upwards as shown by the arrow. Please note here that this curve is only for conductive losses, not for polarization losses. In case of RIP bushings, these DFR measurements are reported to be used mainly for the purpose of moisture which is ingressed during storage, if not properly stored. So the lowest line, blue line, it indicates a healthy bushing. The minimum one is something after 3 months of removal from transformer and exposed to ambient moisture. And this is the worst case, 6 months. Then another concept I want to talk about is the zero and negative tan delta. This is typically, I would say, noticed in lower kV classes, because you can see the high voltage to earth distances in lower kV classes are on the lower side. What does negative tan delta mean? It means that the current related to the voltage, the phase of current related to the voltage is higher than 90 degrees centigrade, 90 degrees, sorry, angle. You can visualize this when you have, in case of condenser bushing, nearer to the oil and insulator, you have the surface contamination here, either externally or internal to the bushing. Then this causes a parallel path. Or second case is you have a parallel path due to surface moisture or surface dirty condition along the insulator between high voltage and earth. Now this is explained in a very mathematical and equation manner. Now this G point is the point where there is a parallel path to ground, that is IG, and whereas below is the current which is going through the test tap to the capacitance tan delta bridge. In normal condition, there will not be any parallel path going like this. But when you have contamination providing low resistance path to earth, it is bypassing the bridge and it is going to ground. So in a mathematical equation form, you can find out that the vectorial sum ultimately shifts, because this Eg vector from the total voltage applied, this angle is mainly decided by how much is the contamination level, and that adds to the total current. This is the current which is measured by the bridge, but this is the current which is passing through, and this is the current ultimately which will be measured by the bridge. Actually, this should have been the current, but this is the resistive path. Minus Ig is the resistive path current which is flowing, and this is deciding the current phase. So it goes higher than 90 degrees, and as a result, the tan delta becomes negative. These are the precautions to be taken at site. Everybody knows it. I found that these precautions are very well documented in the CES specification, which has been released in December 20 for power transformers. Very nicely documented. Um, Let me explain only few concepts here. That the site measurement test setups are not as accurate as laboratory or factory test setups. At site, there are electrical, electromagnetic field interferences. There could be capacitive couplings to nearby transmission lines. So we need to take care, means we cannot exactly reproduce the same values at site which are there in the laboratory condition. Uh, Most important aspect which I have seen, these are the typical errors which are caused are the mounting flange during some of the measurement is not connected to earth effectively, and that results into uh, wrong measurements. At site, there are locations which are, means we need to measure it where there are less interferences, field interferences. Again, we should avoid measurements during rainy season or when the weather is highly humid, uh, because again, otherwise it will lead to this zero tan delta or negative tan delta condition, or effect. There will be effect on the tan delta measured. OIP bushings, typically, we need to be worried about the oil surface of the bushing, oil and insulator surface of the bushing, because it is shorter, particularly in case of 72 kV, 52 kV, or 145 kV. Okay, every kV class has got this relevance, but the effect will be more seen on the lower kV class. Clean the contaminated surface between test tap stem and mounting flange. You can see here these red lines which I have shown. These are the parallel paths to the ground. I mean, the current which will not, which is passing through the test tap to the bridge is ultimately giving you the tan delta value. But if there are parallel paths like this, they will result into change in the tan delta readings. Another thing is we should not measure. This is a nice picture from a Hubble presentation where inside the packing case, this is a typical error which is committed. The packing case can be soggy or wet, and it will provide parallel paths to ground. So it will result into change in the tan delta value. Another error inside the transformer manufacturing factory is, or at site also, is that C1, when it is measured on one phase, we have to short the terminals of all the three phases on HV side. And as well as if it is not measured on the LV side, we should connect the LV side bushing, short it, and connect it to earth. If not done, it will show into higher tan delta values. We have noticed it at many manufacturer locations. In RIP bushing, they should be always protected uh, means we have to provide the oil filled tank, or there are some manufacturers who use dry air filled containers, but oil filled tank is the most commonly used. Now, typical failure mode, I will just cover it in next 5 to 6 minutes. Uh, you have seen the consequences of bushing failures. Bushing failures can lead to subsequent consequences, catastrophic in nature. There are global statistics which are provided. Various statistics provide various different numbers. But let's consider that about 17% of the failures of bushings have led to the catastrophic failure. In OIP bushings, the failure modes, I found the IEEE C57-143 published in 2012, Guide for Application for Monitoring Equipment, Transformer and Components. Here they have nicely defined the failure modes. Condenser core, the possible reasons leading to failure is moisture ingress, poor oil impregnation, or signal stroke faults in paper. Again, the signals to detect these failure symptoms are tan delta and PD. Oil, possible reasons leading to failure are moisture contamination and thermal degradation. Again, the failure symptoms which can be measured is tan delta. Internal surface of insulator contaminated by aging deposits settled on oil and insulator, either inside or outside, predominantly inside the bushing, and they will lead to tan delta, PD, or negative temperature correlation of tan delta. Means if temperature increases, the tan delta will not increase, will drop. There are cases reported like that. RIP, RIS bushing, unlike OIP bushings, there is no oil in this. So RIP, RIS bushing, there are partial and localized breakdowns of condenser layers, and there is no interaction with other part of condenser core. Means if there are 25 capacitor segments or condenser segments, if one fails, other 24 will continue to be highly stressed, but it will not result into a cascade kind of failure. Here, the main diagnosis which has been used is increase in capacitance. Increase in tan delta, many technical papers have reported, is not so common in RIP or RIS, but whereas SIGRE 755 document has given limits on that. Condition monitoring techniques, this is a very nice SIGRE document on transformers again, that what are the different means of diagnostics at site and how they should be used for OIP, RBP or RIP bushings. You see, means around the world data has been captured by the SIGRE document on transformer monitoring. Another concept which we usually miss or misinterpret has been nicely defined in SIGRE document 755. Actually, tan delta of the bushing, when we de-energize after being in the service, we should allow the bushing to cool down to the normal temperature, because as we have seen, the tan delta is temperature dependent. So now when tan delta is temperature dependent, we need to compare it at the same temperature so that we can do proper diagnosis. So SIGRE document 755 has given a formula related to temperatures which are measured at mounting flange level and as well as the conservator level. How to arrive at the average temperature of the bushing and then how to interpret it for diagnostic purpose is mentioned here. Capacitance versus temperature I talked about earlier, but just imagine that if one segment fails in condenser bushing, it will result into change of only 7 picofarad. So you can imagine if temperature is not considered accurately, or if our measurement is not accurate, it can result into issues. SIGRE document 755 again I am referring to because it's one of the best documents which ever I have come across. They have given, when there is no data available from the manufacturer related to what is the safe change in capacitance, they have reported that KV class wise, this percentage change in the pre-commissioning value can be used for the purpose of identifying whether one foil segment has failed. Again, another point which is very valid which I come across is when during service we come across low capacitance value compared to the nameplate value, it typically indicates that there is some test tap contact related issue inside the bushing. Tan delta and power factor monitoring of the bushing, we have talked typically. I will only mention one aspect. We should always allow for some change in measurements at site because of measurement conditions at site and measurement equipments at site and the factory values. 0.001 is typical one. In case of OIP bushings, we have seen that increase in moisture content will lead to this curve shifting upwards, tan delta versus temperature. I found that change in tan delta for a specific periodicity, like delta tan delta per year of 0.0002 absolute value, is the real measurement symptom what we should use. As I shared, SIGRE document 755 has given these changes in tan delta, relative changes in tan delta, and what actions should be taken. Similarly, IEEE C57 152 also gives the guidelines based on their experience. Again, various guidelines are given by various stalwarts in the field. Typically, change in tan delta means more than double of nameplate value is a concern. And what we should say is that tan delta value at 50 hertz followed by DFR tan delta followed by DGA of oil. All these analysis tools will help us in preventing the failure. Similarly, for DFR, for RIP and OIP, SIGRE document 445 has given guidelines. Similarly, for DGA, IEC 61464 or 60599 now gives these guidelines of DGA. DGA has been found to be very effective, particularly if done well. And the periodicity of this needs to be decided based on the experience. Whether 50 hertz tan delta tells you to do that or DFR tells you to do that, but DGA cannot be done so frequently. Online condition monitoring, since my time is over, I am just covering it in 2 minutes. This method, online condition monitoring by sum of phasors or current sum method, has been in use since 1970, but it has got limitation that it is prone to asymmetric fluctuations of system. Today, this voltage-based monitoring is known to be more popular. This is an exciting thing which I found. LED fault indicator has been shown to be provided in test tap cap by one manufacturer in Americas. And when the bushing is in healthy condition, visually it shows green condition. But when it turns red, it indicates that the capacitance segment failure has reached to alarming level. And it is done by a simple capacitor circuit, which is shown on the left side. There is a technical paper published by the authors on this in SIGRE colloquiums in Canada. DC resistance method again means just one comment which I came across in the papers and based on again our experience. Any bushing testing less than 20,000 mega ohms has questionable insulating value. But today with capacitance tan delta at 50 hertz being more popular in India, slowly this usage of mega is getting reduced. In summary, I will say, I feel that more RIP and RIS bushings will be in use, while reliability enhancement on OIP bushings will continue to be further explored and developed. Effective monitoring of OIP bushings to be done on the basis of trend analysis of tan delta will prevent failures. Narrowband DFR means it has been started to be regularly used by utilities like Power Grid and NTPC. This has to be used as a analysis tool in addition to 50 hertz tan delta. DGA of oil sample will be more used as a confirmation tool for OIP bushing when we have suspicion of tan delta at 50 hertz or narrowband DFR gives us indication of health. Online health monitoring devices, as I showed you the test tap cap with LED glow, This is likely to become more popular, uh, and online health monitoring, typically by these capacitor monitoring devices using voltage transformer signal as a reference, will be used in critical installation. Because of the cost, it is prohibitive in nature to be used. Thank you very much. Dr. Arora, handing over to you.
Respected sir, thank you very much. You have covered everything in a very well mannered. It was totally enlightening session, mind blowing. Covered constructions type, condenser grading concept, insulation system types, capacitance and 10 delta basics, 10 delta and various insulation systems, their variable frequency 10 delta concept. You clarified in a very good manner why zero negative delta we usually come across in the field and precautions to be taken at site during measurement. Typical failure mode was covered drastically, fantastically, and condition monitoring techniques and new techniques to see your health of your bushings was fantastic, mind blowing. And before I go for the question answer, you can take a rest of 2-3 minutes. And I would like to invite respected PP Bhai Sahab, please come on the stage as usual and say a few words. Bhai Sahab, kindly unmute yourself. I think there is some technical issue. Now I would like to request respected P. Ramachandran sir, please say a few words. Respected Ramachandran sir.
Hello. Are you getting me, please?
Yes, I am good.
Rajesh, thank you so much for your kind invitation. I always feel honored to be present in IPB webinars. It is 7th in series. A lot of credit goes to you. You see, when you say it, yes, dissemination of knowledge, and that is also for the cause that we really help all our power engineers to come up to whatever level they are today. And this is a great you see objective which you have set forth for you. And exactly and the other thing, when you say learning is never ending process, I really admire you with your these views. So it's a good thing. And then we have to keep this process on always, so that this process never ends up, and we learn on each and every subject of power engineering.
Thank you very much, sir.
Then I'm really happy to see many of our distinguished friends in the camera, and all who are not visible to me, but I really feel honored that I'm amongst them. I have to really salute today's speakers, Mr. Pramod Rao and Nirav Patel. They have done a wonderful job and made a very good presentation. If I put it precisely, it was quite lucid and very impressive presentation on transformers. I have been in the field, you see, all my life, and operation maintenance job. See, really, as very rightly said by Rajesh ji, this subject has been quite dear to me as well. And transformer is the area where every engineer is worried how to save, how to protect wheresoever he is posted. And I always say that if we save one power transformer in our lifetime, I think we have done our job very well. All power engineers who are on the operation maintenance. And Pramod Rao, Mr. Nirav Patel, they have given exactly the starting from basic thing, right from the details, construction details, the 10 delta. And I'm really very much impressed when they have given the various innovations in the bushing sector besides OIP, the RIP, RIS, the RIF, and EIP innovations, which are going to help us, you see, in a big way in the days and years to come. And the other innovation is NANAS. You see this transformer oil. I'm really impressed to know it. I didn't know it. They are coming up with a composite sort of oil, mineral and neither mineral nor ester, as very rightly told by them. But it's really a great innovation. The other new thing they have told the Canada friends, you see, about the indicator, see sort of red indicator when there is a alarm. All these things, they are new things for at least me, and I really adore them and really appreciate their efforts to make up this wonderful presentation. I think my other friends, they will also be, they would have enjoyed this presentation. They will be really, we have to catch a lot of, I have to say only two things, that wheresoever we are working, we have to catch on with such stalwarts, not only, you see, during this webinar, but even afterwards also, wheresoever we are working, we should get in touch with Mr. Rao, we should get in touch with Mr. Patel, so that any of the difficulties we confront in the field subsequently as well, we should take help of them. And our other friends also, like Ramachandran Saab, he would be here listening my voice. He is Pitama of transformer industry, we always say. So try to get in touch with all these stalwarts and take advantage of their experience in life. Power Grid has done a good job. I can quote, you see, Mr. Tyagi and Mr. Sasmal. They have done a lot of job, you see, about bushings, and we should take advantage of their experiences also. It's an international conference. We had organized a CBIP. So it's one of the very nice tutorial organized by Power Grid. Mr. Tyagi presented. So I think we should get in touch with our friends on the subject. So I'll not be taking more time, but only thing, again, I congratulate Dr. Rajesh Arora. He is a reference, for us to see that how one can come up in life. He was 10 years back. He started, you see, coming up. He has done his PhD. He's started the campaign, safety campaign in the country, that there should not be any accident. And likewise, he has started all these webinars. I salute him, and I salute my other friends as well. Thank you so much all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite respected Ramachandran sir. Please say a few words before I go for the question answer. If you can listen, please unmute. Okay, I think there is some technical glitch. I am going to question answer, sir. My very first question is very basic question. As a utility person, you have mentioned about 5 important paper like SIGREF 755, IEC 60137, IEEE C57 19.01, IEEE C57 152. But when we talk about the specification, we usually mention IEC 60137. Why others documents are missing in the specification? I'm surprised, being a designer.
You are asking me, Dr. Arora?
Yes, it is question for you.
Yeah, actually 60137 is universally followed and adopted as the specification in our part of the world. And so 60137 tan delta values, they are predominantly followed, and plus people have used their own experience to decide the tan delta limits. But whereas IEC is a standard which normally talks about the product standard, but whereas IEEE and all, they all give the condition monitoring related aspects also.
Right,
okay.
Exactly.
And SIGRE documents 755 is one of the classical documents which anybody can see.
Now coming to very relevant question, I have seen the specification of many utility. Being a designer, if you talk many utility set the limit of tan delta at 0.5%, some utility 0.4, some utility 0.6. But being the manufacturer, my question is, when as a utility, I ask for the 0.4 and some other utility asks for 0.5. With the same product, how do you manage that thing?
Actually, if you
In the
see
bushing.
in a bushing, the tan delta value of say OIP bushing, oil impregnated paper bushing. Let's talk about OIP, RIP, and RIS separately.
Right.
OIP bushing typically has got tan delta values of 0.003 to 0.004.
Right.
And that is mainly decided by, as I mentioned during the presentation, by the drying quality, the moisture removal quality of the process, and the oil quality. So if various customers specify various limits, it does not mean that you manufacture different quality product for that. Your quality remains the same. But whereas, like say for example, IEC 60137 for bushings, whether it is OIP or RIP or RIS, they specify that the tan delta value should be 0.007 upper value. But
Right.
they say that it is between 10 and 40 degrees centigrade. Okay. But whereas ignoring the fact of 0.007, some utilities say that independent of the temperature, I want the tan delta value of the bushings to be 0.004. Okay. They don't specify any temperature. So it's question of time only for people to appreciate these concepts of temperature dependence of tan delta. And I'm sure this education process will continue. And typically we are all used to OIP bushings, but whereas RIP and RIS are relatively new to India market, let's say, based on the popular usage. But whereas RIP and RIS have got resin material, which has got intrinsic high tan delta values at lower temperatures. Typically in Delhi or say Rajasthan, if you have tan delta values at being measured somewhere at around 10 degrees centigrade, when that is severe cold is there, the tan delta values are going to exceed your limits. So we have to appreciate that. So that's the reason I found that IEEE standard is more practical in saying that everything you should convert to 20 degrees centigrade, and this is the limit for it.
Great.
So,
Great.
so we have to really appreciate everything and then zero down to this thing. It's the education process of the specifiers, nothing else.
One more confusion I have seen as a utility person.
Yes.
You talked about DGA of oil of OIP bushing.
Yes.
But when I see any bushing, OIP bushing, you mention one thing as a manufacturer, hermetically sealed bushing. When it is
Yes.
already hermetically sealed, am I allowed to open any tap and take the oil for sampling of DG of your bushing, OIP bushing? It's a big question.
Actually, that question remains in everybody's mind. But like in instrument transformers, even they are hermetically sealed. Still, people use sampling. So for that reason of sampling, you need to have sampling valve on the bushing. So there is a sampling valve on the bushing, and there is a specific sampling technique by which you can prevent the adverse effects of sealing being broken, hermetic sealing being broken.
Okay.
There are various technical papers on this aspect also. Some manufacturers have published literatures on that. So we can use all these documents to learn more about it. But again, the concept is, when do you want to do DGA of oil sample? When the tan delta of at 50 hertz exceeds the value or exceeds the trend, DFR measurement gives it, and then you decide to take out oil sample. Because if it is a critical installation, otherwise sometimes the users will decide, if I have got a replacement bushing ready with me, why not I change the bushing?
Last question from my side, and I take 3 questions from 3 participants.
Yes.
Suppose you are a purchaser this time and you have to purchase bushing out of 5 bushings available in the market, like RBP, OIP, RIP, and RIS and RIF. Which bushing will you purchase as a purchaser, Zau Saab? What is your view?
My first preference will be RIS. Second preference will be RIP bushings. And if both are not available, OIP.
Can I assume that RIP and RIS are the maintenance free bushing? Because it is oil free and there is no chances of contamination, more life.
Yes, yes. That is the reason RIP and RIS started becoming more popular in India since 2012. And even in the world today, because of established population of OIP bushings, people say that about 60% of the bushings are OIP. But today, this population of new bushings is increasing. Like Power Grid is coming up with projects of replacing OIP bushings with RIP bushings or RIS bushings. So like that, every utility will have their own policy.
One more question: why the housing of RIP and RIS bushing of polymer type, not porcelain? It's a big question usually come in all minds of everyone.
Actually, again, means this is related to when you have OIP bushings, normally the porcelain insulator is used, and people have been used to the shattering of bushings, OIP bushings happening with porcelains and causing extensive damage. So there, when you make it of, you can say RIP bushing or RIS bushing with porcelain, designs are possible, technically possible. You have to use either oil or polyurethane foam inside. But why to leave the chance of porcelain getting shattered and damaging anything?
Okay. Now, anyone who wants to ask question, I have noted three names. First is Shridhar sir. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. We have 5 minutes left to leave. If you are available, and if you are not here, Sanjay Agarwal wanted to ask one question. You can unmute Sanjay ji, or Pradeep ji. You can also unmute yourself if you are available.
Very good evening. My question is, in the system is always harmonics are there. So what is the effect of harmonics on the bushings? Because it is actually like capacitor, so they can attract the harmonic currents. So from that perspective.
Yeah, from that respect, the only effect will be on the test tap. Okay, so but you know the current which is carried by a test tap and the harmonics in the system are normally less than around 4 or 5%, isn't it? So truly speaking, from the current carrying aspect, it does not have any adverse effect on the bushing. Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Next participant who want to ask question, kindly unmute and ask. We can take last two questions now. Pradeep ji, please ask your question. Pradeep ji, unmute yourself. Yeah, please.
Yes, I am unmuted. Now the question is, when the 10 delta tap after measurement is forgotten, if we forget to put back, then there are incidents of failure.
Yes.
So if you have a calculation, how exactly unbalance occurs and fails. Else
You
means
can
it also sometimes.
Yeah, you are right. It will lead to product failure. As you have seen in the presentation, there is a C1 value and there is a C2 value. Okay. So, like a capacitor divider, you just imagine that you have kept the test tap open. That is, the junction between C1 and C2 is kept open. In that case, the potential which is gained by the test tap is by the concept. Let's say that between HV and earth, you are applying total voltage as V, and V divided by the capacitor divider ratio, that is C1 plus C2 divided by C1 is the divider ratio. So you can imagine that if we have a bushing of having a capacitance of 400 picofarad, and let's imagine that the C2 value is also 400 picofarad. So C1 plus C2 by C1 will be 2. So in that case, if it is a 132 kV class bushing, if 76 kV is applied between HV and earth, you will get 38 kV at the test tap, between test tap and earth. So it will lead to sparking and it will lead to failure.
Right, very right.
Yeah.
And also when
Yeah.
that bulb indicator, new
Yes.
circuit for
Yeah.
online indicator,
Yes.
suppose that bulb gets open circuit,
Yes.
then also it leads to 10 delta open.
Yeah, but for that reason they have devised a means a surge arrestor concept inside that, as well as they have provided a link in that case, because for LED like condition the capacitance means if you should I show my presentation again, Dr. Arora, if possible?
Sir, we can give reply in mail because we already...
Yeah, that is okay. But there is a circuit which is provided, and there is a this technical aspect has been covered by the inventor in his technical paper published in SIGGRAE Colloquium in Canada. If you send me your email ID or through Aurora, then I will send across the information to you.
Yes, I will send that.
Thank
Yes,
you
sir, don't worry. All
Yeah.
the left out question will be taken up and will be answered through email. You can send me email in the IP where you got your joining link. You can send your question and I will forward that question to respected Rao Saab and you will get the answer. And time to say thank you once again, sir. Rao Saab and Nirav Patel ji, thank you very much for accepting invitation and giving such a great enlightening session on this platform. Thank you, sir.
very much. Thank you, Dr. Arora.
Thank you all the guests.
Thank you to all participants.
Thank you, Arora ji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.